That site.
All right, I think we're there.
All right, I'd like to call the meeting of the Project Development Board. And I'd like to ask for a roll call.
Greg,
Here.
Jake Staten,
Here.
Judge Lawson,
Here.
Jesse Stockton,
Here.
Dr. Cross, Judge Williams. We have
David, you're muted.
there's
Present.
five present.
Okay, next thing we got is approvals of minutes.
I make a motion, we approve the minutes.
Motion to Mr. Staten, do I have a second? Second by Mr. Stockton. All in favor? Say aye. Aye. All opposed? Likewise. Motion carried. Okay, our next item is discussion of new proposed site. We have received, Jake, I'm gonna let Jake, you wanna address it? We had received this and
Since our last meeting, our regular meeting, I was approached and handed a letter from a local businessman here stating that they wish to be considered for the proposed site, the land proposal. And they presented me with this letter, which I had sent to via text to each board member. I have a copy of the letter here in front of me. The individuals are located just south here of the square, across kind of from Subway there, known as the Jones Car Wash, and the property that joins it, it is owned by Tony Pennycup, which is a vacant lot comprised of about 1.3 acres, making the total area that is submitted here for consideration at 2.4 acres. They have signed this letter stating that the aggregate price together combined would be $205,000, $140,000 for the Jones property car wash and $65,000 for the vacant lot there.
any discussion on this? I'm gonna open it up to discussion.
Judge Craig, we'd have to get an appraisal.
Yeah, I move, well, I'd like to talk about where we are on the properties that we met on last time. The implement property and the store buildings down there. Now, it was my understanding that our offer that we made in the last meeting was accepted by one of the parties, but was rejected by one of the other parties. And we talked about giving them some time to get another appraiser. I haven't heard anything back. I've heard some rumbles that there've been some attempts to contact members of the board. Nobody's tried to contact me. What's the collective wisdom of where we are on the other piece of property that we talked about, the McWhorter implement property and the property next door? Mr. Chairman, go ahead.
Okay, I recognize Jesse here.
I remember that when we left it, that Mr. Ferguson said that he had to contact, I don't know if it's his brother or sister in France. And he wanted to talk to them, and I thought we were going to leave it open to them till May the 20th, to see if they wanted to accept it or not. And then after that, if they don't accept it, I think we need to move on. But that was I remember him saying that, and I remember, I don't know about the reporter, what their final. decision.
I've not heard nothing from nobody except Mr. Ferguson. He came into my office and I told him, I said, I cannot talk to you about this.
Yeah.
So, and he.
Well, I think it's very important, and I know that the judge and everybody else, we've always been transparent throughout this thing, and we've always followed the rules on the thing. Now, my recollection is that we were going to give them some time to get their own appraiser and have an appraisal done because, and they were going to enter into negotiations, but time is a fleeting. I don't know. I don't really, I feel like the offer has been rejected.
Yeah, same thing. I just want to see if the wiring we did at Henry. Well, they don't show.
I can't answer that. The only thing I know is just what Mr. Stockton said. He had said his brother was coming in maybe May the 4th, and they was going to discuss it, and we left it at the May meeting.
And I think he even said he wasn't happy with it, but if they take it, he'd take it. That's what he said at the meeting. But now, and I know the other ladies, they would go to one of them and worry about their inventory, how long they have to get it out, but I don't know.
It's a little slower.
I think that's where it was last left.
Judge Craig, could I say something?
Yes.
I think my recollection is that we had given them in 30 days or until the next meeting to get back to us. There was some talk of their own appraisals, et cetera. There's a lot of contingencies there. I thought about this the other day, unless we can close that city street, which we haven't even delved into that at all, and it'd be premature to do that, I guess, but that really is going to be necessary before we buy any of those 3 tracks. If we can't close the city street, then we can't use any of it. We wouldn't have enough room. So I think that we're not going back on our representations to them that we will give them the 30 days. But I think that we should go ahead with these appraisals on this other side simply because if the Ferguson McWhorter site falls through and we don't have something else that we're ready to go with, then we're going to be behind even more. So those are my thoughts.
Okay.
Do everybody do you have your camera on, Judge Lawson? I
can't get it on, David. I don't know how.
Oh, I just thought it was my thing.
No.
I wasn't aware we were going to have to close the city street.
Okay, I'm sorry. Then I misunderstood that.
But no, you could very well be correct. What is?
I think the street was Clay Street.
I think that's right.
I believe it was Clay Street there between the variety store and the Ferguson Brothers building.
I think it's also known as Fifth Street, but on the old original town plat, maybe it was Fifth, and I think it's now maybe called Clay.
Like,
Well, I can say something to that if you want. From our site analysis, I mean, sure, you can physically fit a building on the main block without Clay Street closed. But I mean, fitting is kind of a relative term. It will fit, but it's going to be tight. And it's going to be tight anyway because of the grade considerations on that site. It's not the best site when it comes to that anyhow, regardless of whether Clay Street's closed or not. That said, if you don't close it, sure, you can fit a building there. There was some discussion about how much, if any, parking to have on site. But that would certainly limit those options further. If the street wasn't closed, that would tighten that up quite a bit, and also kind of call into question the portion of the property that's that one building on the north side of Clay Street. If the street remained and that's all that was left on the other side of the street, you could put parking there, but as you might be, I'm sure you're aware when you drive by, it's not really favorable grading wise for that, without doing a considerable amount of site work or retaining walls to level it out some. So
Is there some talking going on in the background here? Does somebody, what's the deal? Somebody's
I
got,
might have I got some neighbors talking.
okay.
So, it's not an absolute, you couldn't do anything without it. It just further limits it.
Okay.
quite a
I
bit.
appreciate that. I appreciate that, sir.
So are we, Jeff, are we saying that we could build a building on this next to the street without closing the street? Then what would be our need to acquire anything across the street?
Well, I'm simply saying it makes it more difficult to use that piece across the street. You can use a piece of property. It just makes it more expensive to do it. I really think it's, we wouldn't recommend putting a parking lot on that site the way it is currently naturally graded. It's really too steep. You can do it. It's not illegal, but it's not a great idea. So to level it out somewhat, particularly as an isolated piece, you could do it with some retaining walls. It's just, you're going to be spending quite a bit of money to do so for a small piece of property. So yeah, it would be best if you were going to buy this piece, if that street were closed. That would make the site more favorable, but not an absolute.
Any more discussion with anyone?
Well, I think we're in a quandary here. After hearing what the architect has to say and the amount of money that's going to take and closing that street and building retaining walls and everything, I think that we made an offer and it was refused. We said we'd give the folks some time to get an appraisal. We haven't heard back anything. I'm having real second thoughts about that location, just to be perfectly frank.
And just to put it in perspective, the site, Corky sent me a copy of that proposed new site, and it's about double the physical size as the previous one, and apparently a lot less grade change. So as far as, I'm not talking about proximity to town, that's kind of your all's decision, but as far as a building site, it certainly looks like the newer one would be a whole lot more favorable to putting a building and parking and other site improvements on. That's all. It would, you would probably be able to do that naturally grading the site without dealing with the retaining walls that I'm talking about with the other one.
Dr. Kraus, are you on with us?
I am.
Do you have any discussion on what we're talking about? You have anything to say, Dr. Kraus?
Well, the only thing that I think is the understanding that I had the day that we met was that we would give them 30 days. And I apologize, I can't remember the specific day, but I think that we have to give them the chance to come back, because their appraisal might come back and be the same thing. And then they're like, okay, we'll take it because that's all it's going to appraise for. I don't think that you can pull the rug out from under them since we told them they had 30 days. Because I know for sure, just from conversation I'm hearing like that, I think that Debbie Claywell is, making plans of where she's going to move to her store and so forth. So I think that, from what I see and everything, they're probably going to take all.
Of course, you're cutting out there. I couldn't hear what you said.
I can't hear Dr. Cross.
Dr. Kraus?
Yes.
Can you repeat what you said? I think Judge Lawson and Judge Williams didn't understand what you were saying there. Could you repeat it, please?
Yes, I said that, my understanding at the last meeting was that we gave them 30 days to come up with an appraisal. And if that appraisal, if they choose not to do an appraisal, then they accept our appraisal. Or if they choose to do an appraisal and it's the same or nearly the same, I think that they're probably going to take the offer. So until that 30 days is up, that if I understood correctly, we gave them to get an appraisal and then the opportunity to negotiate. Do we not have to wait that 30 days and give them that opportunity?
Judge, can I say something?
Yes, sir, go ahead.
Well, I think Dr. Cross raises a good point. You know, as legally, we're not bound, but morally, I think we are to give them that time.
Okay, thank you, Judge.
Well, I don't, I'll go along with what the rest of the committee think. What I've heard about that site today makes me think that what said about the site and the offer was a premature offer. I think what we've fallen into, we had such a ordeal with the other piece of first property that we had, that we were overly anxious to get a location started and get it going. And, I don't consider it to raise, it doesn't rise to the level of a moral decision to me. A lot of other things I decide every day in my life. This is a business decision, and folks were given an opportunity to offer. Then we told them to get an appraisal. We give them 30 days to do that. And now, if they haven't gotten an appraisal, if they haven't expended any money, I don't think you're pulling any rug out from anyone. I don't see it that way. I'm very concerned about this site now after what we hear today about there being a very limited amount of space there, having to close a road, having to do retainer walls. And we didn't, I think that we have an obligation to taxpayers too, not just the individuals that were there. I don't know. I have great concerns about this location now, and I take equal responsibility to everybody else that was a meeting for saying to give them. I actually was shocked when they didn't take the offer. I mean, you could have knocked me over because I think the offer was overly generous, in my opinion. But now I don't do appraisals for a living, so.
Okay, any more discussion?
I've got a comment I'd like to add. The PDB's responsibility is to pick the best option for the site. So your first decision should be which is the best. I would agree that you need to get an appraisal first, because you might be in the same situation with this. When we get an appraisal result, it may not be as high as what the owner thinks it's worth, and we may not be able to offer that. So we may be right back in the exact same situation. So I think that if these were my neighbors that owned these other properties, I'd give them a heads up and say, there's been a new development. There's another piece of property we're looking at. We can still give you the 30 days to do what you want to do, but you haven't made any obligation to buy it. You made an offer. And as far as you know, you don't know what they're doing with it or what the outcome is. So we still come back to needing to do appraisals on this other property before we can.
All right, thank you, Courtney.
I move that we do appraisals on the new property.
I second.
Okay, got Judge Williams' motion to do appraisals on the new property with Mr. Staten seconded. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carried. So we'll get with them and have them to try to have the appraisals done by our next meeting. Is that all right there?
Judge Craig, what date is the next meeting?
May the 20th.
May the 20th.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And it should be in person.
And it should, yeah, we'll have it in person too, so. So any other discussion? If not, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion.
Motion by Mr. Staton. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Stockton. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you all.
You had a good day.
Y'all